All right. Most investors think that creative finance is risky, but it's only risky if you don't know how to protect the deal. Today, I've got Michael McDonald on, a killer investor and educator who's not just doing sub two deals. He is stacking paydays using trusts and teaching people how to do it the right way. He's got a system that protects the assets, keeps you compliant, and gets you paid 3 times on the same deal, upfront, monthly, and again at the exit. So if you've been scared of creative deals or you just think it's too complicated, this episode is going to change how you do real estate. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Closers Club. Michael, thank you so much, man, for being here. I really want to jump right in. Most people have no idea that you can get paid 3 times on a creative deal and actually stay protected. What are those 3 paydays and why do most investors miss them?
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, happy to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, man. I mean, look, like after doing several hundreds of wholesale deals, you realize that you're really just running on a hamster wheel at some point.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what led me to finding out about this opportunity, which is creative finance, but it's more so on the back end of how we're getting paid. So rather than a traditional wholesale, what we're ending up doing is actually collecting an option deposit from a buyer. Once we structure the deal on the front end, we're then advertising this deal for rent to own or subject to, kind of wrapping these deals to an end buyer. So we get paid on the option deposit up front, and then we get paid on the monthly cash flow, and then we get paid at the end if they exercise their option or the interest over the course of 30 years if we can structure it that way.
So you're taking these deals down. So you're taking them and owning them as your company, right? And then going out. I love that. And then finding a tenant buyer, which is so important because so many people are struggling today to buy houses. I love that you're out there, giving them an alternative where they may not otherwise, qualify for a bank loan.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I love about it. I never really wanted to get into your typical landlording business just because of I don't know, AC unit going out and then your cash flow's wiped.
Dude, I just authorized my property manager for $5,200 to put a new AC unit in. And I was at a property yesterday for another one for $5,400.
Yeah. And I'm not saying you don't have to deal with that as part of this as well, because I just replaced 3 this month. So that really sucks, but it's part of the deal. And at the end of the day, once you get somebody in there, once they start to take care of this home like it's their own, those types of things aren't really your problem anymore because they've put $20,000 down. They are putting money in this house towards their future purchase.
Right.
And so I've just started to see a lot more opportunities open up where sellers don't have a ton of equity right now.
Yeah.
The people who bought a couple years ago, maybe they've refinanced or whatever, there's just not a ton of equity in these deals. And so rather than passing on all of these, we're just finding that there's a lot of people out there who don't have that equity, but we can come in and we can make these deals work on the front end and structure it creatively like this in order for them to not only on the front end have a solution, but then we're providing a solution on the back end as well.
So you're seeing in the market that it's kind of getting a little bit tighter where these people, they don't have equity. So you're finding lots of these types of deals?
We're finding a ton of them. And every time that we come across them, we just have a presentation that we run past them. And, really you could run it by almost every seller and that is terms. But, it really only makes sense for the people who don't have the equity, who have a good interest rate. And so, I've picked up a 2.5% this year. I picked up a 3.5%, a 4%. We're picking up really good interest rates, and it doesn't really matter that much on the equity. It does, but it doesn't as much if you can cash flow 500, $1,000 a month and get that interest over the course of
Mhm.
the long term of that deal.
I agree with you. I've said that since 2009. Like, equity doesn't matter to me as long as I have cash flow, because I know over time, we're in this for the long haul, that over time, that equity, it's going to show up. Do you find that when you're talking to these sellers, like, do they even recognize, oh, it's a 2% interest rate, I don't want to get rid of that? Or these are just people who, normal life is happening to them, right? Death, divorce, job transfer, whatever it is, and that's their motivation?
Most of the time, it's life circumstances that
Yeah.
has them not really concerned about that.
Mhm.
And there are some cases where people know, and I'll tell people too, like the value's in the mortgage right now
Yeah.
with higher rates. So most of the time though, it's they need out. And as an investor, the thing you got to listen for, right, is I just want out of my loan. If you hear
Yes.
that now, then you can start to pivot that conversation of
Mhm.
here's another solution for you.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: where are you finding these people at? What is your lead source?
Yeah, yeah. Well, we do a lot of inbound. So PPC is a big one. We
Mhm.
help people with PPC as well, and then TV, radio.
Oh,
Um,
really?
yeah, we do all of those inbound channels, and
Mhm.
they've been great.
Yeah.
It's instant credibility, and like what I was sharing with my team earlier this week is it just makes selling so much easier, right? Like we don't really have to pitch them. It's
Mhm.
more just like, hey, these people are on TV, these people are on radio, these people are online, like they have a
Yeah.
credible reputation.
Mhm.
I trust them. If they say that this is a good
Yeah.
option, it might be a good option for me.
Mhm. I love that you're blending different lead sources together, and not just getting dependent on one. But how important is PPC? I know that's something you guys really specialize in.
I mean, especially if you are building a brand, you almost have to be on there,
Mhm.
especially if you've got competitors who like know you are
Mhm.
existing, right? Then you cover your own keyword for your company.
Yeah.
But I mean, some of our best deals have come from that channel this year.
Really.
100%. We've closed a $90,000 wholesale in a medium home price of 250 in
Mhm.
our main market.
Yeah.
Closed some other pretty big ones as well. But at the end of the day, these are people who are not wanting to sell typically.
Mhm.
They're people who like have to sell
Yeah.
and they want to do it fast and conveniently. So
Mhm.
those are the quality of people we're talking through from there. I
Yeah.
forgot what a cold lead would look like, honestly, because we get spoiled, man, with how many good
Yeah.
leads we get.
I will tell you, when we were wholesaling, our team, once we switched over to PPC, they never wanted another cold call lead ever again.
Yeah, that's the challenge, right? They kind of expect it now on acquisitions,
Yeah.
so you gotta keep feeding them. The
Yeah.
team's hungry.
I know. How many are you working in multiple markets or just one? And do you want to talk about which markets those are?
Sure. Yeah. So we are 100% in Nebraska right now.
Good.
I've done the virtual model, and it works 100%.
Mhm.
However, what I will say is, with us spending more money on TV and radio and some of these other
Yeah.
sources, we have just became the local guys, and it's been a complete game changer.
Mhm.
Especially, I think what's important when you're trying to structure one of these deals like this,
Yeah.
you somebody has to know who they're talking to. They're not going to probably do a deal like this unless they are
Mhm.
extremely motivated and don't have a chance to really even do their research. With this, we don't pressure people. We just kind of let them know this is an option, and that seems to work really well for us.
Yeah. What was that switch? Because you were virtual at one time, right? You were working multiple markets.
Yeah, so just to give some context for anybody who doesn't know who I am, I moved to Vegas 5 years ago,
Hmm.
and so I am not in my local market, so I am technically virtual.
Yeah.
It's more of my team. I have an operator, I have an assistant, um, couple acquisitions, lead managers, etc., who are in the market, right?
Hmm.
So I've got this interesting dynamic where I'm not local, but my whole team is, and we
Yeah.
are showcasing as a local company because
Mhm.
technically we are. It's just I'm
Sure.
not. Yeah.
So you can't operate this from anywhere. What was
Yeah.
like the biggest reason that had you kind of pull back from that virtual model and go local? Because I've seen that with some other people that we worked with in the past.
Yeah, I've talked to quite a few high level operators myself who have had the same experience, and I think a lot of it has to do with just COVID being long and gone,
Mhm.
right? That made it really easy to go virtual at that
Sure.
time. And people kind of getting back to the way things were before COVID happened
Mhm.
and wanting to shake hands. And especially, I feel like with our market, Midwest specifically, people tend to be, more handshake, good old boys. And I think you can probably relate in the South too.
Yeah.
And so, our acquisitions team, I love virtual. I
Mhm.
could have a conversation with anybody across the country, but our team had a little bit harder of a time converting. It wasn't even converting the contracts. We could sign up all the contracts. So I
Mhm.
think it was between the conversion of a contract to the finish line, our fallout rate just became too high.
Right.
And so it was costing us a lot of money in that. Our fallout rate now is like 15, 20%. It's like nothing.
Yeah.
At the time that we noticed it kind of becoming a problem, it was like 50%. And it
Yeah.
was like,
That's a
ugh, like,
nationwide average.
yeah, it's crazy. And I don't know. It was hard for me to do business like that. I couldn't like it didn't sit well with me,
Yeah.
right? To have that many contracts falling out, it was just kind of like a revolving door of contracts. And
Mhm.
you know how much work goes into
I do.
PCing, right? Running a transaction all the way to the finish line for it not
Yeah.
to work out is it's a lot of headache.
It absolutely is. Let's jump back into the creative deal. So, I think a lot of people get nervous about doing these types of deals, whether it's sub two or, owner financing, something like that. And I don't think that necessarily creative deals are dangerous, but sloppy paperwork absolutely is. So for you, you guys use, and this is something I know you really are well known for, you use a trust system, and that absolutely changes the game as far as keeping the investor protected. So can you kind of break down like what that looks like, and why it matters, so much in a sub two transaction?
Yeah, yeah. So, gosh, I was really turned on to this last year, and I was like, why would I want to do it that way?
Hmm.
And then I realized there's a big problem in the industry where people are taking over these sellers' mortgages, they're changing title, these loans are
Hmm.
getting called due. It's kind of
Yeah.
screwing everybody over.
Yeah.
And I was searching for a new alternative, and I found this trust system, and I'm like, wow, this protects the seller, right? Where ultimately what we're doing is we're putting the property into a trust that
Hmm.
they're a beneficiary on 10%.
Yeah.
So if you're familiar with like the Act, Garn St. Germain Act,
Yeah.
it protects you in the fact that it's for asset protection,
Hmm.
right? So the investor is the beneficiary of the trust. So you technically own the property, you have the rights to it.
Yeah.
And what I love the most about it is, you can go out and get insurance for the trust. You can go do all the things you can do with the subject too, right?
Mhm.
But I feel more protected. It doesn't feel as like, I love the gray area. Don't get me wrong. Most investors love the gray area, but it just doesn't feel like I'm breaking any like
Yeah.
rules, right?
Mhm.
And so that's what I love the most about it. And another benefit, from the seller's perspective is, well, who's paying my mortgage?
Right.
We have a servicing company who pays the mortgage, and they can get notified if it doesn't get paid, and it protects
Wow.
them. Uh, in the case that it doesn't get paid,
Mhm.
it can default back to them, right? So I think
Right.
it's called like performance seed,
Mhm.
um, similarly to that, right? And
Yeah.
so just to name a few things, right? There's a whole lot of other benefits, but that's one of my favorite,
Mhm.
parts about it.
Yeah, the Garn St. Germain Act, I think it's 1982. The reason, I don't, and you may know this, the reason that it came out is banks were, or people were allowing other people to assume their mortgage and the bank couldn't do anything about it. And at the time, in the early 80s, interest rates were rising into like double digits, like 14, 15%. And banks, honestly, they lobbied Congress because they're like, hey, I don't want, this 8% interest to get assumed. I want to force people to, get a new loan. So the Garn St. Germain Act, the reason behind it was to do away with people assuming loans. So it pretty much did away with that. But there was a carve out. The carve out was that, hey, you can put your own property into a trust for estate planning purposes, right? And
Yep.
that's kind of the TikTok of how this works. So for those of you that are watching, and tell me if this is the way you do it. You take your property as the seller, you put it into a trust. Now the wholesaler, the investor can be the beneficiary of that trust. I'm sorry, the wholesaler can be the trustee, right? So they're the person acting on behalf of the trust, but initially the seller is still the beneficiary, and then you're selling that beneficial interest to the wholesaler, right? Or you're transferring that, and that's kind of the steps of how it works. Now you have a property that's in a trust. Initially, the seller is the beneficiary. We're going to change that and move the investor in there and become the beneficiary, and that's where you now effectively have that ownership.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. I just yeah, I actually we have a trustee who we run everything through.
Love it.
So we're even like a layer
I
removed
love it even
too.
more. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think a big concern, at least that I had, I don't know if anybody else who's doing a ton of
Mhm.
these subject to deals really cares, but was like, yeah, what's your legal ramifications if a seller didn't understand what they were agreeing to
Mhm.
um, in that situation? And then, the peace of mind of not having the bank
Yeah.
knocking on your door all the time. Like some of these deals are not home runs,
Mhm.
so you might not have equity to get out of a deal
Right.
to sell it, right? If it got called due to refinance it or whatever. So I like the fact that I feel more protected.
Yeah, and I love what you're doing, that you're actually following the steps, because so many people, my God, in our industry, I saw a TikTok video and I'm going to do novations now and have no earthly idea about,
Yeah.
the paperwork or how this stuff actually goes down. And sub two, my God, it's ridiculous how much bad information is out there, and people who do it really poorly. And you are, when you're sitting across the living room from a seller, we're promising them that we're going to take this over and we're actually going to make sure that these payments happen every single month. So I think just some people are just really lackadaisical about making sure that Mrs. Smith's payment happens every single month. So love that you guys are putting processors in there to handle it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's taken a little bit. I think I've done like almost 10 of these things
Mhm.
already in the last 7, 8 months, and it's taken a little bit to kind of understand the nuances of it. But it's gotten to the point where I've got enough proof of concept, and I've seen like how the cash flow looks, how I get paid on these deals. So I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm trying to get as many as I possibly can.
Yeah.
And as a wholesaler or anybody who's actively flipping and wholesaling out there, your goal should really be to how can you replace your active income with
Right.
your passive income.
Love that.
So I just like totally changed my perspective about how I was investing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I've got to get the active income
Mhm.
way, way and above and beyond what I got to get my passive above and beyond what my active is.
I love that. How old are you now? You're so young. What are you?
I'm 32.
Oh, do you look like you're 25? So for
Appreciate
me,
that.
I 100% agree with you. When I started really investing, I was 39. So like I was like felt like I was running out of oxygen. I'm like, I got to do this as fast as I can. So I think, for people, the sooner you start, the quicker you're going to get to the end. So let's just backtrack a little bit. Again, ton of noise out there. There's LLCs, land trusts, Wyoming corporations, Delaware corporations. Most people are getting it wrong. What's the number one mistake that you see people making out there when they're trying to protect their creative deal or their property?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest one is transferring the title, like
Mhm.
transferring it into their LLC.
Yeah.
Um, it's public record. It's the first place that a bank could check,
Mhm.
and that's when questions started to get asked. So definitely
Yeah.
that. And with the trust mechanism, it's recorded as a trust,
Yeah.
right? So that protects you.
Nice. Um, okay. Before we kind of get into the final questions here, I know I kind of brushed across it earlier, but you guys, not only do you do all these deals, and I know you're coaching and you're helping people, but you help with PPC too, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Cool. Tell me just real quick a little bit about that, because I know people are going to want to reach out because they're going to want access to these types of deals that you're doing.
Yeah, 100%. So it's similarly to why like I'm excited to share about these trusts is like I had a problem, right? And my problem was how who can I find as a PPC provider who can actually deliver me results and not just
Mhm.
talk about it and actually care about the client? So yeah, I mean, what ended up happening is I found a guy who ran my PPC internally with great
Mhm.
results for a couple of years. We ended up joining forces and started Property Pros Marketing.
Nice.
So propertyprosmarketing.com is the service.
Mhm.
And I would just say, like, anybody who's interested, we can do an audit for you and kind of look at your account. Um, but also, you know, we are very hands-on with our clients. I know
Mhm.
everybody can say that, right? But
Yeah.
like we've, you know, we've had a lot of clients come over from, you know, a service that maybe wasn't like that, and so would love to help anybody who's looking to, yeah, run their own ads.
Okay. All right, cool. So, kind of last question I've got for you. So, for somebody who, they're hearing all of this and they want to lock up a sub two, but they want to protect it the right way. Like, what is just one thing that they need to know about these trust agreements before they move forward? Is because I don't want them going out there and just using Chat GPT to try to create their trust document.
Yeah, the paperwork is definitely the key. And
Mhm.
so having access to that paperwork important. And then I think having a trustee, honestly, on your side who understands the
Mhm.
nuances of this.
Mhm.
Um, it's all fun and games until you go to court, right? Uh,
Yes.
you know, I feel really good. Like we've had a couple of situations where it's like, ooh, like if I didn't have anybody to call or,
Mhm.
you know, message about this, I would be really uneasy,
Yeah.
right? And so that's the biggest thing is having access to the paperwork and who to send your deals to as
Right.
the trustee.
Right. 100%. I personally know investors here in Chattanooga who, got sued, and because they had the right disclosures in there, the seller wasn't able to take them to court and say they were taking advantage of them. Like my disclosures personally, they actually say like, I am not on drugs. I understand what's going on here. I understand the investor is going to make money. I understand my mortgage is staying in place. So those things are just so absolutely crucial. So Michael, this has been absolute gold. This has been amazing. So for people who want to learn how to structure their deal, to do it the right way and get protected and really have that triple payout, where do they go? How do they learn more about you and your system? Like, where's the best place to go?
Yeah, so a couple things. If you're catching this live,
Mhm.
I am hosting a masterclass today at 3
Oh,
o'clock
nice.
Pacific time, and we're going to dive into this. I'm actually going to bring the expert trustee on,
Oh, nice.
and yeah, so it's going to be really cool. So that's trust dot thevirtualmillionaires dot com, and
Cool.
then for anybody who wants to like go deeper, I created a ridiculous offer for people who want community, who want access to this kind of information. Essentially, you know, after doing about 500 deals, I've created some content around like, how do we find the deals first,
Yeah.
but then we're also going into detail about, you know, how do we structure these deals, and then we're going to kind of break down the actual paperwork side of things. So in the virtualdealmakersclub.com, you can learn more about that.
I love it, Michael. You're the one-stop shop. You can help them with their leads. You can teach them how to lock up these deals, and then how to, take the property that you bought, turn it into three different profit centers, and not be doing tenants, trash, and toilets. That's absolutely amazing, Michael.
Yep.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate you popping on. Any final words for anybody?
No, man, I appreciate you having me on. I'd say, you know, if you're on the fence about doing these types of deals, just get in the right room. And
Love it.
if you need help with paperwork, David's got you.
All right, man. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it, man.